Hi, this is John Hupalo, host of My College Corner, and I have a great friend and contributor to My College Corner, Greg Cohen. Greg, welcome back to My College Corner.
It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me, John.
You know, you've been here several times. We've done a lot together. For those who may not know, you can just tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Campus Bound, and also you're the founder of Campus Bound and president there, but also the founder of a really cool new company, a new venture called College Affordable. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Sure. So Campus Bound is a company that I started over 20 years ago, and we're a full-service college admissions and financial aid advising company. So we help students through each and every step of the admissions process with finding colleges that are good fits from a financial standpoint, as well as from an admissions standpoint, admissibility and chances of getting in and good fits. And we also help with the financial aid part, which is trying to make sure it's affordable. We work very closely with the students and the families through each and every step of those processes. The other thing John mentioned was the College Affordable, which is a nonprofit organization that I started to really work with high schools and other community organizations to really provide the financial aid guidance that people need as they're going through this. And so thanks to generous sponsors, philanthropists, local businesses, we're able to provide this to the families at no cost to them with all of the education and hands-on support with some of the financial aid elements.
Yeah, it's really cool, Greg. And one day we'll just spend maybe some time talking about College Affordable. It's a great model, an offshoot. You're doing great work there. But today I want to bring you here to talk about 10 FAFSA questions that confused parents have. There's an awful lot going on right now in the financial aid world, and confusion is really the sort of buzzword, unfortunately. So question number one on my list, this says that the FAFSA is delayed, and someone said, you know, what impact is that going to have on me as a parent, my student, when colleges go to award financial aid to seniors now applying? So this is a big question for folks. What's going on there?
Yeah, this is representing a challenge not only for the students, but also for the colleges.
Yeah.
So the FAFSA is scheduled to be released by the end of the year. So by law, you need to be able to have access to that by December 31st. I think there may be a little bit of pop the champagne, turn your attention to the FAFSA, but that's going to push everything back. So if your student applied early action, early decision, it may be that you won't get your financial aid award for much longer. What's also making it a challenge is that the colleges are not going to be able to be set up, and that FAFSA is not going to be processed potentially until the end of January. So it's quite possible that the colleges won't even see your data until the end of January. And so that means that everything gets pushed back. So I think that you hopefully, if you have a senior in high school now and the school just requires the FAFSA form, you may not see your financial aid award until just about April 1st, because they're going to be crunched. These colleges are going to be crunched to package all these students between probably around mid-February right through April 1st.
Yeah, so it's not just the parents and the students who are confused, the colleges are confused. I'm sure the folks at the Department of Education are not going to work saying, gee, let's see if we can delay this another day. They're probably confused. They want to get this out. We're really with a group of students right now who are in a unique position. It hasn't happened before, and so they're going to have to deal with it. I mean, there's just really no way around that. But you mentioned just the FAFSA. There are some students, of course, who are applying to colleges that would require the CSS profile as well. How do these changes with the FAFSA affect that situation?
There are about 250 private colleges, particularly more selective colleges, that require the CSS profile form. That form has been out since October 1st. And that's how those colleges give out their money. That's the evaluation tool that they use. So if you have the chance to submit that form at those schools, you should get the financial aid award similar to what it has been like in years past. So for early action students or early decision students, that may be coming just about now at the end of December, right through January or February. The formula that's used on that calculation also has not changed. So one of the big differences between the new FAFSA, not only is the form much different, but the formula that they're using to determine your eligibility for aid has changed a lot. But those schools that require the profile form, we believe are maintaining the same formula to give out their own money.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Greg. And you talked about some of the changes in the FAFSA form. So maybe we should start there. One of the changes is how business and family farms are going to be considered on the FAFSA form. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Historically, only businesses that had a greater than 100 employees need to be reported on the FAFSA form. That's changed. And so all businesses need to be reported. Now, if you have a small business that you just have your computer and you do it out of your home, you don't really need to report anything. What you're reporting is if there's any substantial assets of the business and any debt that you have. So if you're a contractor and you have a couple of trucks or a landscaper and have, some equipment, you do need to report that. And those assets are going to be treated very similar to personal assets in the formula. So it's really going to have a potentially negative effect for small business owners in particular.
That's really something. And you mentioned filing. And so what tax year should the students use and the parents use for the FAFSA form?
So the colleges use and the federal government uses something called prior year. So if you're going to school in the fall of 2024, they'll be using your 2022 tax returns. For the sophomore year, they'd be using your 2023 return. So you should have all the information on your tax returns from prior year. And in fact, one of the nice things about the new FAFSA is that the ability for them to transition the information right from the IRS right to your FAFSA it looks better than it was in terms of the how seamless it is. So that information, when you start the FAFSA and you give consent to be able to access the tax returns from your IRS, that will go right into the FAFSA.
That sounds like it'll be really helpful and probably cut down on some of the manual input errors. I know I can't do anything without fat finger it, so it should help cut down on some of those errors. You did say that the students who are starting this year, so they want to go to they're seniors in high school, they want to go to college in the fall, they're going to use their 2022 return this year. And then you said sophomores use the 23. So what you're saying is that for this class, when they're freshmen in college, they're then going to be sophomores. They're going to use their 2023 tax return next year when they re-up, which leads to the question or the answer. I won't ask the question. I'll just say that you have to file that FAFSA form for each year that the student's going to want financial aid, right? So the reality is high school seniors, college freshmen, sophomores, and juniors are the ones who are filing a FAFSA form this year for undergraduate students.
That's right. You reapply for financial aid every single year, and you're always using, as you progress through college, that tax return from 2 years behind. It is really based on what the school year is.
So, Greg, let me ask you this. If a parent has multiple children in college at the same time, do they need to file separate FAFSA forms for each one, or can they do them together? How does that work?
Each child that's in college needs their own financial aid form. You'll be still using the same login, and you'll be going in with your information, but 2 separate financial aid forms need to be done for each student. And if you already have a student in college, one of the unfortunate things from this year is that old information that you had entered previously is not retained in the system. That will change in future years, but because they're transitioning systems, you're going to have to start from scratch with some of that basic information about your address and your social security numbers and your, some of the basic information about the student. Where in future years, you'll be able to roll most of that year to year.
Now, I didn't want to get into this, Greg, but you just said something really important. So this might be a pitfall for some folks. You said when you log in, and so what you would want to say, and what I said we weren't really going to talk about, but you need an FSA ID to log in to that. And so a new student, a high school senior right now, goes online and they get their FSA ID. Parents do, but can parents use their FSA ID from last year for this year's FAFSA form?
Yes, those FAFSA IDs still be active. You should verify it. And one of the things that we've seen is that the federal government is making a lot of people reset their passwords. So when you go in there to use it for the first time, you may have to reset your password. What I'd recommend, even before you start to fill out the form, you can do this now, is go to studentaid.gov, verify your password is set, your information is correct, and then you'll be ready to go when that form opens up in a couple of weeks.
That's great. And studentaid.gov is also where you can go to get your first FAFSA ID. So a student goes on there and a parent, or let's get into this next, the contributor, whoever's going to contribute other financial information to that FAFSA form needs an FSA ID as well. But Greg, let's talk about that, because this idea of the contributor is somewhat new. It's actually not new because someone else had to support the FAFSA form for a student in the past, but we now name them the contributor. Can you just, the confusion is this, let's say, and I get this question all the time, and I know you do too when you do your webinars, a parent happens, parents are not together. Maybe there's a divorce situation, something's happened, but Sally's living with the mom and the dad is living somewhere else. In this situation, let's say Sally's mom makes $60,000 a year. Sally's living with her. Mom claims her as a dependent on her taxes, but dad is actually providing child support of $75,000 a year for Sally. So in that case, then who has to file the FAFSA form?
So this rule has changed quite a bit. This is one of the big changes in the rules in this new FAFSA situation. So at this point, the new rule is that the person who provides more financial support is the one that needs to fill out the financial aid form, the FAFSA form. It doesn't matter who they live with. It doesn't matter who files them on the tax returns. But this is something that person is. Now, sometimes it's gray. Sometimes it's pretty close between, in a divorce situation, who provides more financial support. In that case, the secondary requirement is which parent has a higher income, which is also a change to it. So you want to put a lot of thought into that first question because and really understand very holistically who's providing more financial support in that process.
Greg, am I right in remembering that more financial support and the test period for that, is that over the last 12 months? Was it back in the tax year that we're told? What period is that financial support for?
It's in the last 12 months.
The last 12 months. Okay.
So yeah, so whoever's provided more financial support in the last 12 months is
Okay.
considered it. And it, but you want to think about, who's paying for food and housing. And, if you're the recipient of child support, well, that may be the only contribution that the other parent provides. But are you providing even more than that amount for the other things that go on in life? Camps, tutors, and maybe car insurance.
And life. Yeah. It's life.
And life, right.
It costs money to live. So, all right. So let's have one last step down the detail chart here. And that is the situation I said before. This time the parents are divorced, but the husband's been remarried and his wife's working. So now you have Sally living with mom. The father is divorced, but remarried. Is his wife required to provide financial information as well?
That's right. So whoever's the step parent of
Yes.
that person that's filling out the financial aid form, that custodial parent is required to also report their information. Now, there's a couple of interesting things going back to the earlier question about who provides more financial support. It's only the biological parents that are being compared. So let's say that one of the parents is remarried and maybe the step parent is providing a lot of help too financially. That is supposed to be isolated in the evaluation of who is the parent that is responsible for it. But once you've made that declaration of who the custodial parent is, that step parent is back in play. They are going to look at the combined assets of that couple as well as the income. The other parent, their finances for a school that's just requiring the FAFSA is not included at all.
Wow. As you're going through all that, Greg, I'm thinking to myself, your phone is going to ring off the hook when this FAFSA form is finally available at the Department of Education, because folks are going to need guidance. Everyone wants to do the right thing, but it's all new, and I'm sure confusion will reign even harder, if that's the right way to say it, when that form is finally available. I said 10 questions. I haven't been counting, but I think this is the 10th question. And if not, we maybe go on for one more. And that has to do on the same trail. Let's just say that they determine who the contributor is. So the student's going to file the FAFSA information. They figured out which parent's going to file that FAFSA information based on the 2022 tax return. But life has happened now for a year and a half or two, and their income is lower or their assets are lower or something has happened. How do families deal with that kind of situation where their financial condition is materially changed?
So the FAFSA form is going to automatically pull in your 2022 income, but for many families, their income is not steady and maybe their income did fall. This has to be a direct communication to the colleges. And so you'll want to reach out to all the schools that your student is considering, or if the student's a returning student, directly reach out to them and let them know what your 2023 income looks like. And then you may ultimately have to manually provide them with a copy of your tax returns or W-2s when they're filed. So be prepared to appeal any unique circumstances or extenuating circumstances. And a change in income, especially if the income has gone down, is definitely something that you want to consider. One other tip I'll just raise along those lines of that is one of the big changes in the financial aid form this year is that they no longer on the FAFSA give you the benefit of having two children in college at the same time or more.
Yep, big deal.
And that's going to really disrupt the potential eligibility for a lot of students. But I would recommend communicating that to the college to explain that student's sibling, we pay $20,000 a year for that student to go to college. There's a possibility like the change in income or high expenses or medical expenses that they can contribute that. They can factor that offline under a program called professional judgment.
Yeah.
And so communicating a very artful letter to the colleges about any unique circumstances like that, I highly recommend.
That's great advice. And there is a lot of devil in this detail. At mycollegecorner.com, there are blog articles, several of them about some of these details. There's also a webinar there, Greg, that I and Mark Salisbury, our friend at Tuition Fit and Pathways Planning Innovations out in Iowa, he's a great expert on this as well. We went through a bunch of this detail. And also at mycollegecorner.com, we have that student aid index estimator. So you can go up there tonight and get an idea of what your SAI or student's SAI might look like. So if I've had 10 questions, I'm going to ask one more, the bonus question. And that is this, Greg, sort of generally, are there any other pitfalls in this current FAFSA form? I know you've been talking to a lot of parents in the last couple of weeks and just about getting ready for this. Are there other pitfalls that they should be prepared to deal with as they're thinking about filling out the FAFSA form when it becomes available?
I think one of the big challenges this year in particular is that because of the delay in when the FAFSA is going to be processed, you won't even see the report. The school won't be able to see it, and you won't be able to make changes if you've made a mistake. So be very, very careful with all these questions because you could submit it and it will sit there for, it could be a month before anything happens with it, and you'll be able to go in and make a change. So be very, very careful. And one area that I would particularly give you a warning sign on is the way that some of these yes, no questions appear in the wording of the questions. If you're not careful, you may answer a question that is supposed to be yes as a no or vice versa. And so if you answer that question wrong, the logic of the FAFSA form will take you down a path that will make it so that you have an incomplete FAFSA. So when you start to see these yes and no questions, be careful to make sure that don't just automatically click yes, because sometimes the answer is no, which is the second answer. But intuitively, you just click yeses, right? And it's because it's the first choice. So be very careful about that.
Yeah,
The other
Greg,
thing I'd recommend, John,
please.
and just because you mentioned the student aid index on My College Corner,
Yes.
I am telling people to use that as a point of reference. When you submit the FAFSA form, you are going to see, even though the FAFSA won't have been processed, you'll see what your student aid index is. I would recommend doing this on My College Corner as well. If those numbers aren't close, you may have made a mistake on the FAFSA form.
Well,
so use it as a backup, as a validation standpoint, because it's new. This form is new. The formula is new. The transition from the IRS is new. I get worried about it. So until I see this working properly, I'm going to say validate.
yeah, Greg, thank you. Validate so important. So we know the Department of Education released their SAI calculator in sort of mid-September, early October, and it was wrong. They had to take it down. And somebody came to us and said, your numbers are different from the department's number. How can that be? And we checked, and then it came down. One last thing I want to say about this. Literally just last week, somebody said, I did it by hand. I did my SAI calculation by hand. You can do that. You can go get the formula. And I put the numbers in the calculator at mycollegecorner.com, and they were really off. And so we went back and we redid it by hand and saw that they were right. And we were able to tell that person where it is, because by hand, it's really difficult. There are all these different tables and you have to get them just right. To your question, you have to know what you're looking for. So I think using backups to make sure that the numbers are looking right is really great. You know, trust but verify is a really great thing. Greg, I truly appreciate your time here. One last thing. The resource is mycollegecorner.com, but also studentaid.gov is an excellent resource, right? They have a really good backdrop there of all this kind of information. They're putting up as much as they can when they can. And also, I'll just ask folks, if you're interested in this, seeing more of what Greg's doing and see some of our other Ask the Expert contributors, please go to the My College Corner Facebook page and like that, become a friend there. And also subscribe to the My College Corner YouTube channel. This will show on the YouTube channel. We'll put it up on our website as well. But there are lots of resources out there. Same thing, go to College Affordable. Website is collegeaffordable.org, right, Greg? Is that
That's right.
correct?
That's the nonprofit, and then campusbound.com, which will explain the different one-on-one services that we can provide.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, keep up the good fight, Greg. I hope that your phone is really charged nicely, because you're going to be on the phone quite a lot in the next couple weeks or so. And again, thank you for contributing to My College Corner.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.